friends, this is Holly and welcome to Lamb Living. We have all seen these adorable fairy garden displays at the Dollar Tree. If you've been in any Dollar Tree, they always have these fairy gardens for all the holidays, and they had several lines of them with little tree tops and mushroom tops and flower tops and all the things. Oh, look how cute they are, my goodness, little petals. And the mushrooms just caught my eye. So cute. So I decided I wanted to do something. Oh, and we're going to be doing something with those little glazed mushrooms at the end of the video as well. They even had these darling little minis and even ones that are smaller than that. So I chose these two sets, the ones with the like leaves on the top and the one with the mushrooms for the roofs of our little cute houses. And then some random minis, little accessories, and I'm going to make them all one. I'm going to take this sea glass spray paint by Krylon. I usually use Rust-Oleum, but this sea glass, it's not the sea glass effect, it's just the color. And it is in I want to say satin, but it might be gloss. And then I'm also going to be using that craft paint there on the left, and then this Americana, and mixing it up in one of my salsa jars there. I never throw those away. Those are great for mixing up paint. And what the spray paint didn't quite hit, I used that whole big can with the 20% extra on all these little houses and signs and whatnot, and mushrooms. And but it's still like on the little undersides, I just can't get everything. Once the can gets down to gets low, you can't spray up anymore, and so I just use this little bit of chalk paint. Now that chalk paint from the Dollar Tree that I showed you the picture, that color is great. I love that bright aqua, but there's no names on those. If you've ever seen that in the Dollar Tree, there's no names on it, but I just love how it looks with the Americana paint. Now, I'm trying to decide whether I want to wax these with Waverly white wax or with the DIY white wax. And you can see right there the difference. I have them side by side. I did one little mushroom, one little house each, and one little lobster each. And you can see the difference. I love them both, but I decided to go ahead with, look at the little teeny tiny ones. With the white wax by DIY, which is a whiter, it is truly a white wax. So I've got the ones that I waxed with the Waverly there, and I'm going to paint over those so they all look the same. Even though I like the ivory, and I'm going to show you something waxed with ivory here in just a little while, some mushrooms I make waxed with the ivory white wax in a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and make all of these kind of monochromatic now. They've all had the sea glass paint. They've all been touched up. And now I am white waxing. Now there's no worry of bringing back any of the original colors, the dark greens, the reds, the orange, the yellows, because I use that spray paint. That spray paint with all of the chemicals is why you have to use the spray paint outside. That seals up any color. So if I had just used the chalk paint, and even that DIY cottage color has a built-in sealer, it still might have, as I rub right here, rub back the wax, I could have rubbed back some of the original colors. But because I did that spray paint in the beginning, that sealed it up. So I knew I wouldn't get that color back. Sometimes I like to get the color back, just a little bit. And, then I just use chalk paint or an acrylic paint, and I can get that effect. But I didn't want that here. I wanted them to be monochromatic. Okay, now I'm taking this from the Shore Living line. This is the twine that came out in the spring. It was out last year as well. And I am going to wrap this 18-inch wreath form from the Dollar Tree. And I decided I always like to put something on these. You see there's 3 circular beams and then a few cross beams, and I always like to wrap it with something or put paper on it or something to catch my hot glue if I'm going to be using hot glue on these wreath forms. Now look at this. it went perfectly. Now we know, because honestly, you're not going to be able to see this once I get all the houses and all the stuff on it. But now we know that one of those packages of twine covers an 18-inch wreath form. So this is going to keep my hot glue together, and it's not going to make a mess. It's going to hold on to things. Okay, now I enlisted Kevin's help. This is my husband helping me here. He's got his drill there, and we were trying to decide whether I knew I wanted to wire these in, and then I'll use hot glue to kind of keep them up straight. But we were trying to decide if we wanted the holes on the sides to run my wire through. You see, I've got that wire from Michael's. I got, who knows when. I've been using that little spool of wire for a long time. That we used the skewer. We stuck a skewer through it, taped it, and pulled the wire through. But then I decided, let's try this upholstery needle and put 2 in the back so you wouldn't see the holes. There wouldn't be any chance of seeing holes. And I didn't need the upholstery needle because he popped the Dollar Tree house kind of made a big hole there. And that made it actually quite easy. When the drill went in perfectly like that, I did get it through because I made a little hook. Do you see the little hook that I kind of make in the wire? And then I just kind of push it through. He's making the holes just a wee bit bigger, kind of angling the drill bit so it slides right in there. And there you go. But it was easier when he popped bigger holes in it. It just made it easier. See, that one has a kind of one big hole. That sure does make it easier to get the wire back through. And that ended up being the easiest way to get the wire in the back, and it held beautifully. And then I just, Now, he pushed a little bit too hard on the teapot, so we will be fixing the teapot. I'm not upset about it. It's okay. I didn't fuss. He is helping me, so I didn't fuss. But he just doesn't know his own strength. He popped a little hole in the front of my teapot. Okay, now, the potpourri in the crafter's square aisle is just downright useful. I use it all the time for stuff. And then I have my random shell collection. Some of those are from the Dollar Tree, but some are from, I collect shells. And so anyway, there we go. I just ran it through, and I made sure that it was on either side of the middle circle of my wire wreath. There we go. And then I ran the wire back through to the front. There's how Kevin fixed. He fixed my teapot. He just went over to one of my baskets and pulled out a flower and shoved it in there and said he fixed it for me. So I'm going to do something a little different, but I appreciated the effort. Okay, now I'm also going to be putting in all the cute little welcome signs. So I'm trying to decide where I want everything, and kind of looks like a big clock, doesn't it? I'm not going to be making it into a clock, but that's a thought. All right, so there I run the wire through, tie it on the back, and then I'm going to fish it back through to the front and tie it back. So they're nice and secure. There I go, and twist, twist, twist. And then I'll be using hot glue to make sure they stay standing straight up. And there's the one we did first with the wires on the sides, but that's okay. I put a lot of stuff here. You'll see I'm going to use lots of filler, so you won't even notice those wires. I'm going to fish it back through my twine. And there we go. So I do that. There we go. See, they're on there nice and snug. And I do that with all of my little houses. Oh my goodness. I've been wanting to do this project for a long time. And I thought this color was just fun for summer. Of course, I like this color all year round. If you've ever seen any pictures of my reveals inside my house, this color permeates the house. I love it. All right, so I'm just trimming off all these extra wires where I have it twisted off. And now I'm putting this potpourri for kind of a natural element. I know these kind of look whimsical, the houses do, but I wanted that natural element. And I didn't mind a little bit of color. I didn't use a lot of that green. I used mostly the browns. And then here I'm going to take some shells from my little shell collection over there. And I found 2 little shells that kind of look like doors. Yeah, so I just made some double doors on that little teapot house. And then I'm putting one of the signs that we painted and waxed. I think it says beach on it with a little arrow. And so we fixed that, no problem. And so you see how I'm kind of filling in with the shells and then the extra little mushrooms and all kinds of goodness and cute. Now here I've got my knees up on my stool, and you can see I'm kind of in my light, but I'm trying to make sure, because this is such a big project, that I get just all the right things and make it to look, you know, circular. So it all has kind of a, it's, you know, doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but I'm trying to make sure everything's all tucked in. I'm using some of the bigger shells to kind of give it some of a border somewhat. You can see I'm going to tuck that little guy right there. Seemed like he needed a little something. Now I love it as it is, but it needed something. Still missing something. So I was taking a lot of my plain wreaths and I was just setting it on top. A grapevine wreath, you know, a wreath with, you know, different materials. And then I remember this one that I had thrifted last year sometime. It was hanging up in the closet of my piano room. And so I pulled it down. It's magnolia leaves, of course. And I thought it has the same colors as some of my potpourri. So I'm going to take these zip ties from the Dollar Tree. I just showed you a picture there in the hardware aisle. And if you don't use zip ties, which I didn't until about 3 or 4 years ago, oh my goodness, zip ties just make life so much easier when you're decorating something, because they're not permanent, but they're very strong and they don't hurt anything and they're easy to hide. They're just nifty things. Oops, I knocked off something. I'll have to glue that back on, no problem. And so I put the zip ties, I think I used 5, and I'm going to do it kind of like I would if I were upholstering a chair cushion. I'm going to do on one side, and I'm going to go straight across to the other side and tighten that one. And then I'm going to do, you know, like if I did 12 and 6, I would go to the 3 and 9, and, you know, so on and so forth. That's not perfect science, but I wanted it in the middle. And so if you saw, I kind of made the wreath kind of open up flat. That's what I was doing with it to begin with. So this wreath would just lay right down in the leaves. And now I'm just fixing and fiddling like we all do when we have a wreath with wires. This is a wired wreath. And it was such a nice wreath. I think I got it at Hello Goodbye, one of our local thrift stores, but it's been such a long time ago. It was before I started taking pictures of everything I thrift. And but anyway, it was just hanging up there, and I loved it plain. I had it all fluffed up. But I opened it up to put this little cutie in it, and look how pretty that looks in the background. It's just the perfect backdrop. And now I just put that little mushroom that popped off when I was messing with it and glued a few more things on it, and then here it is. And I'm just tickled with it. I had to hang it on one of the hangers that we put into a stud in the wall, because this is heavy. This turned out to be a good piece heavy with all the shells, and then this big magnolia wreath, and all the little houses are light, you'd think, but by themselves, but when you put them together, oh my goodness, it makes such a substantial piece, and I just love how it looks in my piano room. Gorgeous. Okay, now moving on to more mushroom madness. We're going to be using the toadstool mold from the IOD, Iron Orchid Designs, and I am going to be using the Dollar Tree resin. So about, not quite a year ago, it was when my Dollar Tree went to Dollar Tree Plus. Now these are each $1.25. They were over in the regular Crafter Square, but the Dollar Tree Plus section, you've probably seen them. They have lots of the add-ins and the molds and lots of things to go with the resin over in the Plus section for $3 and whatnot. But this is not a quick cast resin. It is a 24-hour clear cast resin. And so I didn't have to worry about rushing at all with this. With the 10-minute resin, you have to really work fast. This, no, I'm just using a plastic knife, and I'm just making it just lay perfect in this mold. And look at the adorableness that comes out of these molds. They're clear. I'm going to be putting it on a frame over there. And this mold, the toadstool mold is adorable. Now, each one of those resin bottles, you need the A and the B, and you need to mix them together equally. And then, of course, put it in your molds. You don't have to prep the molds or anything, no cornstarch or anything. These silicone molds are fabulous. And yes, I think that was Kevin. He was checking it out because we were playing with that resin. I cleaned them out, by the way, and I'm not sorry I did it. When that came out, because I haven't seen the resin out since. I know it still's out there, but it's not come back to my Dollar Trees yet. I check every time I go. But anyway, I found this frame probably at Hello Goodbye. That's where I get most of my frames. They're super cheap there. And it was, this looks like fall maybe, I don't know, when I sprayed those frames. Anyway, okay. Now, the resin has cured and it's very hard. And now I am taking 30 seconds in the microwave, regular, I guess high strength, I don't know. I just stick it in for 30 seconds. And I can only do this once because of the science of it all. But I am heating them up so they'll be moldable again. Because this is... and I've got to work fast here. Of course, I have this sped up. I'm not working this fast. But I do have to work quickly because these will, once they firm back up, I won't be able to heat them up again to get them moldable again. Part of the chemistry of it all. It won't allow it. It gets stronger every time you heat it up and mold it again. It gets stronger. I don't know all the science behind it, but that's just what happens. So you get one shot at that with these this 24-hour cast. I think you probably can do it with the 10-minute quick cast as well. But with the quick cast, you can pull them out in 10 minutes and they're still moldable. And before they really firm up and cure up, you can touch them and they're still just ever so slightly warm. And that's pretty cool too. But because I'm working so fast, I'm just going to be using, and I'm just doing a small project on this frame, I'm just going to be using hot glue. And it did great. It worked perfectly. And I haven't had them pop off at all. Okay, now on this one, I'm going to be using the chalk paint by Waverly that I get at Walmart. And the name of this is Fern. And it's a beautiful green color. Ferns are one of the things that I have a lot of luck with here. I live in South Georgia, here on the coast, and it's hot, and the sun is hot, and so I have a lot of shade, and because we have some big oak trees in our yard, and some other trees as well. So ferns are a friend of mine, so I love fern, but I love this color as well. We do get mushrooms, which is kind of fun. And so anyway, now this is just chalk paint. So when I wax this in a minute, I am going to be using the Waverly white wax this time. I would pull off this chalk paint, which is water soluble. When I wax it and rub it back, I could pull off this chalk paint. So the matte Mod Podge is acting as my sealer so that I can't pull back the paint. It is set. So here comes the Waverly white wax. So you can see how that's going to look like on a project because I love them both. I love the white of the DIY, and I also use Annie Sloan, has a beautiful white wax. And then I love this ivory of the Waverly. So we're just going to work it into all the little cracks and crevices because that's honestly where I want it to stay. And I'm going to end up waxing this twice. So here you're going to see this is the first buff back with a paper towel, just a dry paper towel. And I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm just doing half right now. And then I'm going to come back after I let this layer of the white wax dry. I'm going to come back in, and I find that it's easier to do light layers of the white wax or any kind of wax, honestly. I find it easier to do layers instead of trying to do big, thick clumps of it. I'm just coming back and putting a little bit more lightness in the cracks where I want them to sit a little bit lighter. And look, you can see I've done it twice, so it's nice. Got that beautiful waxy oxidized look to it. And I put this precious picture. This is a picture of the blessing, the prayer before we ate at my daughter's wedding. That's she and her husband praying, bowing their heads. It's such a pretty picture. And all right, now you remember those little mushrooms with the glazed tops? Now the bottoms are not glazed and the tops are. So I'm going to be keeping the tops because they're the same colors. They came in all kinds of colors, but usually the greens and the blue glazing, those go first. And so these brown ones were left, and that suited me just fine because the brown is the same color as my beautiful magnolia wreath with the adorable little mushroom houses and cute fairy garden houses. So I'm going to keep the glazed on top, but I'm going to clean up the underside, which is, on every one of these mushrooms, the glazing is just a mess on the bottom. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. You'd think they'd just go ahead and glaze the whole thing. But they ended up needing 2 coats on the glazing part, but not really on that unfinished ceramic bottom. That just soaked up the paint, and that just did great. But the glazed part did need a second coat. So I just cleaned that up. And then I'm going to be using the white wax on the bottom. Now remember that paint that was left over from where I mixed in that Americana. That's Cottage Color by DIY, and it has a built-in sealer. So I'm not working this paint too much. So I wasn't worried about the color coming back. And actually when I got the wax on the glazed part on top, it just wiped right off. It cleaned off beautifully. The glazing was a perfect protectant for that. And so I'm just kind of putting the wax where I want it. I want it a little bit more. There's a couple of cracks, and so I'm lightly buffing that back. It's hard to tell that I'm doing it lightly, but I wanted to see those cracks kind of coming down on the vertical cracks on the mushroom. You can see the difference between waxed and unwaxed, and then they are. You can see those vertical lines. There's just some slight ones in that cute little mushroom. Oh my goodness, these little chunky mushrooms are so cute. And then I just put some of the little ones, see the pelican and those tiny little mushrooms. Those are the ones I didn't use in my wreath. So I just set those about, a little shell and a sand castle. And those 2 special couples to me. That's of course my daughter Hope and her husband Chandler, and then that picture right there is my grandparents, Fanny and Alden Haynes, and they're already saints in heaven, sitting around the throne. I'll see them again someday. And there's my little vignette, little look in the piano room, and I just love this. So whimsical and beautiful, but I still think it's so elegant. After I made it kind of that monochromatic, and the wax just brings out all the details. Look at all those little mushrooms tucked in here, hither and thither. And I just love how this looks with the shells. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel. And I want to thank you and leave you with one scripture. This is from Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be confident.